Hello and welcome back. Well, a little while ago I made this video here, scroll sawing improvements, and I made this table for my scroll saw. Also added a power strip to the front leg so that I could plug the scroll saw in and plug in anything else that I needed to use with power. Now in this video I'm going to do some more scroll saw improvements, and we're going to start with the head that holds the blades. Now I don't know if you can see that, there's a lot of play in there. I can even get a box cutter blade in there as well. So I'm going to take all that off and have a look to see what we can do to fix it. Well, there you go, that's quite a bit of movement there. I get on the lathe and start turning a piece of 10mm round bar. I drill a hole down the middle. This hole matches the internal part of the needle roller. And then I part off that little piece. It has some small burrs on it, so I sand those off with some sandpaper. And then I check it on that internal part of the needle roller. Back over on the scroll saw, everything is all put back in place with the new little washers as well. And then put all the bolts in, and all those bolts are tightened down. And I can tell straight away that that's taken up a lot of that movement. I also do the same to the clamp underneath the table as well. Now when I go to test this, I accidentally stick the blower hose right in front of the blade, so it's a bit hard to see anything here. But first impressions, I think that is a lot better. I don't know if the slop in those blade holders was causing the issue, but the issue was that the blade would sort of wander off a little bit, and I'm just wondering if it was sliding across as I was scroll sawing and then wandering off on a different path. But anyway, we'll test it out over the next few weeks. The next upgrade I wanted to do was to add a foot pedal, so I can have both hands on the work and just use my foot to start and stop the scroll saw. So I bought this from Amazon, pretty simple device. But yeah, look at that. Not very good quality. They just jammed that in there. I cleaned up the edge of the thread with a deburring tool and got that all screwed in properly. Here's a plug and cord, and I cut a little bit off because I need that little bit for the plug which the scroll saw will plug into. You'll see that a bit later. I've got both those leads inside the foot pedal, and I strip off the insulation for the cabling. The earths or grounds are tied together, the browns or actives are not, and the neutrals are tied together, and there's a blind connector put on those. I put an electrical connector on the earths, and I solder this on as well. Then those earths are connected to the base, because I want the whole metal part earthed as well. The actives or hot wires that feed in and feed out have connectors soldered to them as well. Then I put some heat shrink on to protect them. The feed coming from the wall outlet is put into the common, and the other terminal is put into the normally open connector, and that means the circuit will be open until I put my foot on the foot pedal, which will close it. This is the lead that comes out of the foot pedal. I strip off the plastic for the wires and I wire a plug onto the lead. It looks like I need to take a bit more of that black insulation off here. I do that off camera and then finish wiring up that plug. There's our active or hot, if you say it in the US, earth, and our neutrals around this side. Then I can put all this together. That just pushes in there like that. And then there's a little nut that goes on the back here which tightens down the cable. Now before I go livening this thing up, I want to do some testing. I test the neutral first, yes, and nothing on the other connectors. Then the earth, yes, and nothing on the others. Also, I'm making sure the case is earthed. And then finally I do the active, which should be an open circuit, until I push the pedal down, and then I get a closed circuit. And that works fine, so I'm happy with that. We're ready to put the cover back on, and there is this piece here that shields these terminals. However, there is a big hollow inside here as well, so nothing's going to be touching them. So I'm pretty happy with that. The screws go in, and that there is all complete. I connect it up to the machine, put my foot on the pedal, and that starts the machine. Give it a couple of tests, and this is going to be very, very useful for when I do scroll sawing. I think this is a great improvement. It's been about 2 weeks after I put the washers in the top and bottom clamps here, and I've run into a problem. I've actually stripped the thread in the bottom clamp. So the little wing nut thing like this, well, down in the bottom one there, has been stripped out. I went out and bought this Pegasus chuck set. I'll tell you what, this is goddamn expensive. It's about half the price of the machine. But there are a lot of good reviews on this chuck set. So that's the next upgrade we're going to do, is install this. I don't want to dwell on pulling all this apart on camera, but fast forward and we get all the top and bottom clamps off, and then we can install the Pegasus chuck set. It's pretty straightforward. 2 bolts in the top chuck and 2 bolts in the bottom chuck. I don't know how good this comes up on the camera, but there's about the same amount of play in here as there was before I put the washers in the old chuck. So I don't know if that's going to be an issue or not. The other thing is this clamp seems to not clamp properly. So I really need to look into what's going on with that. Anyway, this is the bottom clamp or chuck, and you can see in here the thread is a little bit butchered. I could have fixed it, I guess, but after watching a few reviews on the Pegasus chuck set, I thought I'd buy it and install it. Before we put the blades in, we just got to centralize the ends of the bolts here so they're in the middle, and then I lock that up with a spanner. The blade goes in, and I tension it up, and I give it a quick test, and that looks good. But when I start to cut something on a faster speed, that lever just undoes every time. Taking a closer look here, you can see it doesn't actually stay down in the lock position because of this piece of metal here. Now, I don't know if I've missed something really obvious or not. When I saw guys installing these on their machines on YouTube, they didn't seem to have this issue. But I can't find any adjustment on this lever or on the top chuck at all, so I'm kind of left with no other choice other than to cut out a piece of this top arm. Now that fits in there a lot better, and I can turn the speed up and it does not come undone. I give it a bit of a spin on a piece of wood, and the blade is not really tight. You can see it flexing there. Once I realise, I tighten up the back of the machine, and that puts more tension on the blade, and then it cuts a lot better. After I installed the Pegasus chuck set, I used the scroll saw quite a bit on a project, and I have to say, firstly, that foot pedal is absolutely awesome. You're not kind of looking at your work and one eye down there and one eye up on the switch trying to turn the machine off or on. You just start the machine with your foot and turn it off with your foot. Really easy, and I've got to say that's probably the best upgrade I've done. And I've had no issues with this Pegasus chuck set since I hacked out a bit of that top arm. Seems odd that I had to do that, but that was the only way I was going to get it to work. When scrolling, you have a whole bunch of bits and pieces that you need to work with, and I don't have any storage here at the moment. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. And I'm going to add these blue containers on each side of the scroll saw table, and that will allow me to put the bits and pieces in them so that I have easy access to them. I did consider screwing these onto the metal frame, but I think for now I'll just use a bit of double-sided tape. It's quick and it's easy, and usually this stuff holds on pretty tight, so long as you can get that backing off. I position this bucket in line with that front table, and I need a little gap in between the table because the table does tilt up. The rear bucket sits directly behind the front bucket and it's parallel with the table. Once all the buckets are in place, I can start loading them up with all the different bits and pieces that I need to use for scroll sawing. There it is there, 4 buckets. that pretty much holds just about everything I need. The last upgrade I have is to add a work light to the scroll saw table. Now this is quite a cheap budget model. The clamp isn't very good. That's all clamped in place, and the lead is then popped through that little gap and then plugged into this USB port on the power strip. I have the controls just to the right hand side here, and I can turn that light on, and this light actually does do different shades as well. Now I probably won't use the magnifying part. I did try it in the past and it didn't seem that good. It was kind of hard to get your head in the right place to be in focus. But when I'm scroll sawing, I have some eye magnifiers that I put on and they seem to work a lot better. Well, there it is, part 2 of the scroll saw upgrades. And as I mentioned before, that foot pedal is a really, really good upgrade. So if you do a lot of scroll sawing and you don't have a foot pedal, that's the first thing that I would add. Anyway, I hope everyone has a great day, and once again, thanks for watching.